It's time to talk about this division. A little AL West roundtable on this edition of MLB Tonight. Look at the firepower we have. If you love broadcasting, this is the segment for you. We got CJ Nikowski. He calls games for the Rangers. Dave Sims calling games up in Seattle. Todd Kalas, heard his voice, calling the world champion Houston Astros. Mark Gubzov was a great pitcher, also calling games for the Angels. So, guys, this is going to be fun. I'm going to throw out topics, and we're going to run through where you stand on them. CJ, I want to start with you. Do you think, and obviously we don't have someone representing the Oakland A's here, and they're kind of doing things differently, not spending as much money as the other three clubs, trying to push away the Astros. Did those three teams, your club included, do enough to shorten the gap between where the rest of the division is and the Houston Astros?
I think so. And I think you could probably point to the starting pitching for the three teams that we're talking about in particular. I think you can't sleep on that Angels rotation. We already know that the Mariners have a pretty good rotation themselves. And the Rangers have done a lot of work this winter to make sure that their starting rotation has gotten significantly better. So I think the power of the starting pitching is probably what's going to give these teams the greatest chance to close that gap. The Astros are still really strong. They run 6 deep. Todd knows it very well. They're all homegrown. It's really kind of unbelievable to see what the Houston Astros have done from a pitching standpoint. But I think the rest of the teams, and the Rangers in particular, obviously the team I'm pulling for the most, they have done the work to make this thing a little bit closer.
I got to tell you, the Mariners learned a lot last season going eyeball to eyeball with the Astros in the postseason. Those 3 games were just absolutely amazing. I think that the experience gained there is going to be something that's going to help them tremendously. I think last year's season series was 7-12 as opposed to a few years ago when Astros beat us 18 out of 19. And I think that Teoscar Hernandez addition, who's a guy that's been healthy for the most part of his career. Colton Wong at second base, is a great addition. And then the continued development of Julio Rodriguez, who's, flat out superstar as a rookie. Then another key, I think, is Jared Kelenic. If Kelenic can get it together, this is going to be the year. This will be a great year for him to have a big impact on this ballpark. I think the bullpen's still solid. Starters are still solid. So I think it's going to be super competitive.
By the way, guys, it's an honor to be on here with all you guys. It's fun. When you look into the Angels last year, and Todd, you remember this, the Angels won a series down in Houston for the first time forever, and they were 27-17, playing well, pitching well, especially the starting rotation. But what it came down to was some injuries, some key injuries. They didn't have the depth. So what did they do this offseason? Perry Manassian has added some really good depth as far as Brandon Drury, Hunter Renfroe, Gio Urshela, as far as position players that can help just in case, or they can be productive parts of the everyday lineup. And then you add Tyler Anderson, who was a all-star last year with the Dodgers, that almost threw a no-hitter against the Angels last year at Dodger Stadium. So there's a lot of balance in the rotation. Shohei Ohtani, phenomenal player, but you look at the rest of the rotation. Reed Devers threw a no-hitter last year. You got Patrick Sandoval. I think is going to develop into one of the best left-handed pitchers in the game. So, and Jose Suarez. So the rotation is deep. They're going to try to do some stuff with the bullpen, but finally you're seeing some depth with the Angels as far as their everyday lineup. That's something we didn't think we were going to talk about a whole lot last year, but that came into play and the reason why they really struggled there towards the end.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to puff out my chest and say the Astros are going to run away with things in 2023, but I agree with those previous 3 guys. I just don't see it happening because all those teams got better. Gooby mentioned the depth with the Angels. Simsy knows that first game of the ALDS could have gone the other way, and who knows what happens in that playoff series. All 3 games, hyper competitive. And CJ mentioned the addition to their pitching staff, their starters in particular, after adding Semien and Seager last year, is going to make the Rangers very formidable. Astros lose a Justin Verlander. They might be the one team that could have afforded to lose a unanimous Cy Young Award winner based on their pitching depth. But you lose a guy like that, it's going to have an impact. But I do think the Astros are still the team to beat. The AL West still goes through Houston.
This is so much fun to listen to you guys. Not surprisingly, we're running out of time. I have time for one more topic. So if I told the 4 of you, after the new year, your respective team adds 1 more player via free agency or trade, what position do you think that player plays, and who might that player be? CJ, I'll start with you.
I'll say for the Rangers, probably an outfielder at this point. Chris Young has talked about that. Not a lot left necessarily on the free agent market, although there are a couple of really good pieces if they want to go the platoon route, like A.J. Pollock as an example. He could be a guy, Robbie Grossman, that you could pair into platoon role, or the trade. In the trade of Brian Reynolds, I think everyone kind of looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates after he requested a trade. If they could figure out a way to get him in a Ranger uniform, that would be a huge difference maker, and I think maybe make things even a little more challenging for the Astros this year.
Sounds like it's going to be a tug of war for Mr. Reynolds, because he's been in the eye scope of the Mariners for a while. I think the one position would be DH, although the guys like to rotate their outfielders in that position. But I would think that DH would be, if they could get a solid, a DH that you could put in there every day, or just somebody, as I mentioned, that could rotate in and out of the outfield, maybe some first base, that type of thing. But I think I know Jerry Dipoto. I've seen him and seen him on record saying he's looking for 2 more bats. So that's on the shopping list.
Yeah, I think when you look at this division, the rotations are unbelievable. Every single team in this division. So I still think the Angels are going to try to add in that 6th starter, whether it's Michael Walker or Johnny Cueto, something like that, and it's a back-end part of their bullpen. So starting pitching is still, even though it's a lot deeper than we've seen in many, many years for the Angels, that is going to be a spot I think they're going to add on here before too long as far as another starting pitcher, because they feel pretty comfortable with their everyday lineup.
In terms of a player for the Astros, I think they'd look at a veteran backup catcher. A lot of catchers are off the board right now, but I think they're a little uncomfortable going into the season knowing behind Martin Maldonado, they have 2 young guys in Corey Lee and Yainer Diaz. They like them for the future, but I'm not sure they want to go into opening day without a veteran behind Maldi, who is so important to that pitching staff.
Guys, this was fun. A thrill for me to chat with 4 guys. I am a big fan of all your work. Todd Callis, Dave Sims, CJ Nikowski, Mark Gubza. Thank you so much. An AL West Roundtable. I had a blast.
Thank you,
You're
guys.
welcome. Great to
There
see
you
you,
have
boys.
it.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year, Dave, and all of you. Awesome. Just great at what they do.